Fill her up.
You're listening to the Gas Digital Network.
Good afternoon, Michael Malice here. Let that be your welcome for the next hour. We have with us our returning guest, recurring guest, Dave Smith, host of Part of the Problem here at GasDigitalNetwork.com, 1/3 of the Legion of Skanks, also here at Gas Digital. His comedy special Libertas hit #1, and he's just back fresh from PorcFest, which is the Libertarian Burning Man. Dave, welcome back to the show.
What's up, brother? Good to be back with you.
So I went to PorcFest many years ago, 2014, maybe 2015. I enjoyed it. I didn't feel a need to go back. It's a little too rural for my taste. Although if I'm moving to Austin, maybe I'm going that direction. Let me know, how many times have you gone now?
This was my second, and it's a lot more rural than Austin.
Yeah, for sure. So PorcFest is a bunch of tents. There's some speaking tents, and there's people camping on the campgrounds. I, of course, stayed in a hotel a little bit up the road with David Friedman and all the other people who matter. How huge was the crowd?
Oh, it was big, man. So I went, this was my second time. I went 2 years ago. I didn't go last year. It was like there were restrictions and stuff like that. But I went the year before and it was great. But this year was like incredible. I did a live podcast and a live stand-up show. And the podcast, we must have had like maybe 350 people, 400 people there. And I was like, oh, this is great turnout. And then at the stand-up show, I thought we had probably like 500-600, but then I was just told earlier today that they counted it at closer to 700 people there. So it was just packed. Great time. So lots of great people, a lot of fun. It was a very interesting experience, especially in the last year where I've probably had more like Twitter flame wars with other libertarians. You know, like ever since joining the Libertarian Party, there's been like more conflict within the libertarian world. Whereas before that, I was like you. I got along with everybody. And then definitely since the Mises Caucus has really been taking over the party, there's been a lot more of that kind of like, attacks and stuff. But it was cool to be up there and just like see it was like nothing but cool people, not one bad interaction. And as you've mentioned before, I'm blown away by how many young, socially normal people there were. It's really something. It's encouraging.
So one of the tropes that's going on around social media and just kind of in this libertarian space is that you are pretty much a cancer on the Libertarian Party. Your followers are taking over something that they have been building up over decades. You're going to use it to further your delusional ambitions to be president. And then when that obviously crashes and burns, you're just going to leave the party as you found it, like a bunch of locusts, and they have to rebuild from scratch.
Yeah. What's the issue with any of that?
Were any of those types of people there, and did they interact with you?
Okay, so I had not one negative interaction throughout the entire thing. There was one, like literally the whole time. I mean, I'm just, like if you went up there, when Tom goes up there with you're just getting swarmed constantly with people coming up and saying really, really kind things to you. And
God, sounds like an absolute nightmare.
Yes, to you it's a nightmare, but if you could remove your hatred of your fellow man and social interactions.
These are not my peers. Yes. Fellow man, please.
No, I mean fellow man. I didn't say peers. I just meant that they're the same species as you,
okay,
which you also don't concede.
I guess we're using some words loosely today.
No, but it's like just a ton of just like really kind shit that people came up to say, like things that really, mean a lot. Like, the stuff like you got me through this year and, you like, introduced me to this ideas. I'm really grateful. Just overwhelming positive. There was one person, kid who, yeah, it was Tom.
It was Tom.
So
He's
Tom
jealous
Woods,
of you.
I saw Tom Woods. I go, hey, Tom, what's going on? Big finger, right to my face. I was like, whoa, Tom. They spit at my shoes. was
Yeah,
very rude.
well, he's not going to reach your face.
It was actually the first time I've hung out with Tom since all of this crazy stuff.
Wow.
So Tom was, I don't know if you saw him, but he was in the city
I hadn't
right
seen him yet.
before all the COVID stuff went down. And we had plans to have lunch. And the night before we were supposed to have lunch, my wife's grandfather, like I can't remember if because a few things happened to him, but I think he fell. He was 95 at the time.
Oh, wow.
And he fell, so it was like a bad thing. And he was rushed to the hospital. And my wife was like, I want to go out to Jersey to go visit him. So I had to call Tom and be like, I'm not going to make it work this time. And then literally that week was like when everything, locked down. So I haven't seen Tom through this whole thing. So it was really cool to see him. But anyway, so I had one kid who I passed by and I was alone. I was walking from the like up where the general store is to the Mises tent. And I just happened to be walking alone, which I usually wasn't at this thing. And I was walking alone down the trail, and one kid passed me. And I was like, hey, what's up? We made eye contact, and I was like, what's up? How's it going? And he just kind of looked at me. And then like, it was like a kind of started look. And then he went, what's up? What's up? And kept walking. And I just knew right there, I went, that's an enemy. Like that guy, I could just tell from his reaction, that was a guy who knew who I was and didn't like me. But that was the only thing. For all the other ones, if any of them were there, they kept their mouths shut. They didn't say anything. And it was just overwhelming. But when I'm telling you, our people, like our people in the Liberty movement were, I mean, it must have been 50-1 if there was another one there. We were so outnumbered. The big events of the thing were like, it was like Tom Woods and Scott Horton and me, and like all those people were the ones who everyone was there, like excited about. And of course, the people who run PorcFest and stuff, I have a great relationship with all of them. So it's a very small group, the critics. They're a very small group, and a lot of it's Twitter noise.
Yeah, it was really kind of interesting because I don't know if you saw this, but the former chairman of the Libertarian Party, Nicholas Sarwark, I think it seems like his Twitter feed is just trying to be used to generate heat and to kind of be a heel and to be antagonistic with people who have opposing points of view, which I am personally have no issue with. I think that's a perfectly appropriate use of social media. But I don't feel like he's very effective at landing the target. He's just effective at like shaking the beehive and getting agitation. But I don't know how many minds are being changed, because I think, to your point about it being 50-1, every single one of his, or lots of his tweets at least, I get ratioed. And for people who don't know, is it all of them?
Everyone I ever see, everyone. It's always just like 10-1 people trashing him. I don't get it.
Yeah, I maybe this is a masochism thing. Maybe this is a spectrum thing. I mean, I don't have any theories, and don't really need to have them. I don't know if you saw this, but I tweeted out that it would be a shame if whoever takes over the Libertarian National Twitter account, if their first tweet were to apologize for all of his past dipshittery.
We're gonna do an Obama tour when we take over the LP, an apology tour. We're gonna go
start in Egypt.
We're going to Egypt, and we're just going to apologize for Nick Sarwark, and the Egyptians are going to be like, we have no idea what you're talking about. We're like, no, we need to get this off our chest. Dear Egyptians, there was a very failed chairman of the LP.
And then we're going to go to Pakistan and say, look, I'm sorry that Nick Sarwark was head of the party. Let me be clear. He does not speak for us any longer. So
all these countries are like, can you stop bombing villages, please? Like, we're not at that phase yet. We're just at the apologize for Nick Sarwark.
Yeah, we have to get elected first.
Guys, this is the very beginning of the campaign. So, like, I'm going to need you guys to hold tight.
So there was another situation that you and I discussed last time you were on the show, which is there was kind of a coup attempt in the New Hampshire Libertarian Party that was resolved in favor of the rules and who had been the Libertarian Party prior as a consequence of this situation. And I'm sure in part due to me blowing it up on Tim Pool's show, Timcast, the following day, the current chairman of the Libertarian Party, or let's suppose it's within 3 days, I don't remember exactly, Joe Bishop Henchman resigned as head of the LNC without a replacement in place. And blocked me, even though we've never interacted. So there's a few of them who blocked me because they have no idea what else to do. And I think they're boomer enough to think that if you block someone, or I mean, if you're that they can't see your feed, all you have to do is open up a private window, as if I'm going to the walls anyway. There also was a move of retaliation, or at least that's how I perceived it, to strike the current secretary, Ms. Harlos, from the LNC proper. And that was going forward because she was the one who kind of exposed all the antics that they were pulling.
Yeah.
Do you know what the latest is with that?
Yeah. So that failed as well. Oh. So it's unbelievable how this thing all worked out. And just to be clear, there was kind of a 3-prong attack that made it all fall apart. But Karen Ann Harlos played a very crucial role in all of that. So Karen Ann Harlos is not a Mises Caucus member. In fact, she's been critical of us in the past, and of me personally, but she was always critical in a reasonable way. Like she wouldn't be hysterical about it. Like she'd say things like, what people were, would be like, oh, Dave's an awful alt-right entryist because he had, Nick Fuentes on his show. And she'd go, yeah, to be honest, I don't think he should have had him on his show. She go, I don't think there's any use in talking to those people, but whatever, it's Dave's show. He can have what he wants on, but I don't think he should have done it. Like, her criticism would be like that, the way a normal person would disagree with you, not like screeching that you're this awful person because you talk to someone I don't like.
Well, the question is this: if you are this awful person, why are they talking to you?
Right.
Like it's like infinite regress. I don't get it.
Yeah, the thing that I've really never understood about which to their credit, a lot of them have left and quit the Libertarian Party after this whole thing fell apart. I'd say that, a bunch of them. Andy Craig quit the Libertarian Party. A bunch of them have left. And I give them credit for that. I think that is the right thing to do if they believe the ridiculous shit that they believe. But if you think about this, right? If you believe, forget even the Libertarian Party. If you thought the greater movement of anarchist liberty people, like the whole realm that we're in, if you thought that I was like a Nazi sympathizer, and of course Tom Woods is this awful bigoted League of the South, like horrible person, and of course you are like good friends with both of us, and so you're in that category too. Eric July is also problematic and racist, whatever their worldview is. Ron Paul was a racist. Lou Rockwell is basically a neo-Nazi. Like, go down the list. At what point do you go, I shouldn't be in this movement anymore? Like, at what point, if all of the figures, that have big followings within this movement are all terrible people, then probably I certainly wouldn't be a part of a movement if I thought that about all the people involved in it. So, you see a lot of them leaving. I get that. But anyway, to Karen Ann Harlos, so she immediately, she's on the LNC and she's just objective and has some integrity. So as soon as she saw this happening, she was like, whoa, this is crazy. And she got recorded interviews with everybody involved. And this was huge because
when did this happen?
This happened right away. Now, Joe Bishop Henchman wouldn't do it. He was smart enough for that. But the state chair woman sat down and answered questions.
With Gilletta Jarvis?
Yes, Gilletta Jarvis answered questions. And her explanation completely contradicted what Joe Bishop Henchman said in the meeting, which is that he knew about the plan. He signed the letter with the intention for the plan. This wasn't even her idea. Other people told her to do it. And so that happened. Then there was a massive public pressure campaign, which I was really going crazy on Twitter. And then when you did the Tim Pool video, it was like, and the fact that Tim put the clip out on his YouTube channel, like it was just, they were just being swarmed with people. And then Josh Smith, who's a great dude, who's also, he's an at-large, also on the LNC. He put a motion forward to release all of the correspondence between Joe Bishop Henchman and Gilletta Jarvis. And Joe Bishop Henchman resigned like an hour later. Like, he was like, whoop, no. And then he said the reason he was resigning is because he couldn't tolerate the bigotry in the party. Like, all this bigotry. As soon as we needed to release the transcripts, all this bigotry, all that. Last week, the bigotry wasn't so bad, but all of a sudden, I can't deal with all this bigotry now that you guys want to see my emails, and just left. And on the way out, he passed a motion to, clearly out of revenge, to kick Karen Ann Harlos out of her position as the treasury. And so they passed this motion. him and one other guy voted yes on it, and then they both resigned. Then the motion got declared by the vice chair who took over as chair as out of order because they didn't follow the procedures. So they passed the motion got declared out of order, and they had already resigned. So they didn't have the votes to kick her out anymore. So the coup attempt failed, that attempt failed, they all resigned, and then a whole bunch of the loser brigade just started quitting the Libertarian Party. It was a huge step forward in the Mises Caucus Libertarian Party dominance. And then just the other day, and I'm blanking on this, I'd have to research it, but there was another state convention that went the Mises Caucus way, and we're now in control of 26 states in the party. So we're officially the majority of the party states are Mises Caucus friendly.
Am I to understand correctly? So it seems pretty clear to me that when he was exchanging emails with her, this would have not been using his, let's suppose, Gmail. He would have been using his Libertarian Party account, which means once the Libertarian Party is taken over, whoever is their IT person will have access to all that data, even probably if he deletes it, because the Outlook creates backups.
Well, that might be the case, or he may have used his personal email address. The guy is a lawyer, so he may have been smart enough to.
Well, maybe I don't know that she was smart enough.
Well, it doesn't seem like
because
she probably would have been.
So there's two of them. You're going to have two copies of those emails.
Nothing we didn't learn from Hillary and Hunter.
Yeah,
emails can be found.
So,
although Hillary did a pretty good job.
Or it could be Lois Lerner, and emails could be lost. And even if you have congressional subpoena, it's just like, oops, it's like, well, too bad. So, this is because another thing that happened is, she publicly said this was kind of crap and unprofessional and retaliatory and so on, and so forth. And, he was kind of making it out that she was completely unprofessional and this is all ridiculous. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens when these chickens come home to roost.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, from my perspective, like it's, I mean, look, there were legit crimes that were committed and people should have to answer for all of that. But my main goal is not about vengeance or anything like that. I just want the mission to keep going forward. And this was wonderful for our mission. So it's like, okay, the next step in clearing house in the Libertarian Party, clearing our way to be able to really turn this thing into what I think it should be. And for those people there who are like, well, all these other people put in the good work and they built up the party. A lot of those good people are really happy with what we're doing because they see it, they get it. They're like, oh yeah, this is what we need. We need like all the popular figures to bring this energy in. Like, as far as I'm concerned, I'm following in the tradition of Harry Brown and Ron Paul and the guys who were past nominees of the LP. Like I'm LP, you know what I mean? So like, it's like these guys are the deviation as far as I'm concerned.
So one of the big arguments they had against you is that what you're doing is creating an environment in the Libertarian Party that's inhospitable to people with different views. And that once you come in, you're going to start purging people, which is not what the party should be about. And it's what they're going to say is devil's advocate here. It sounds pretty clear that what you're saying is, Kathy Newman, that you're not going to create purges per se, but you're going to do your darndest to create an environment where everyone of that ilk is uncomfortable. And a la Mitt Romney, your hero, they're going to self-deport from the Libertarian Party. Are they right?
Well, I mean, I learned everything I know from Mitt Romney. And if the plan was good enough for Mitt Romney, I mean, why wouldn't it be for me? Well, look, he got us Obamacare. The guy is accomplished. he sure did. Man, that really is true. He got us Obamacare.
Yeah.
And he was this close to landing that Secretary of State role with Donald Trump. He said the interview went great. The first interview went great. Second round, he flubbed it up a little bit, but nobody's perfect. Anyway, but his dad and his 12 grandmas were proud of him.
Yeah.
But so look, I think that the idea of making the party an inhospitable environment for some people is not a bad idea. I mean, some people like who are like, if you're more exercised by mean tweets or who had a podcast with a right winger that they're not allowed to talk to, than you are about lockdowns and wars and things like that, then I don't think you serve too much use in the party. But that being said, I don't want anyone to leave. So I don't want anyone to leave. I want them to stop being awful. Like, I think we need as many people as we can get. So I'm not trying to purge anybody out of the party, but if we want to make this a force for what we want it to be, then yeah, we're going to have to be a little bit focused on those issues. So my thing is like, yeah, if you think I'm a Nazi and I'm becoming one of the major figures in the party, and that makes you want to leave the party, I'm fine with that.
Okay, yeah. One of the things that I don't understand is the argument is, is the Libertarian Party a vehicle for people getting elected, or is it a vehicle for promoting the correct ideas of liberty? Like the populist and progressive parties did not get much success electorally, but they got enough that the other two parties adopted their platforms. Which of those do you think is closer to your vision for the LP?
Well, okay, so there's no question that red pilling people is closer to my vision, but I think it's a false choice to put the two of them next to each other. So I think you almost have to look at this in two distinct, different fields. There are local elections, and then there are state and national elections. Right. In local elections, that's a whole different game. If anything is winnable, and somebody can actually bring some amount of real liberty to people's lives by getting elected, then that's where we should be very smart about choosing what races we support people for. But there are examples, not just in the Libertarian Party, a lot in the Republican Party, where people have gotten, elected to local positions and done really good things, like really good things, repeal gun laws and, stuff like that. Okay. And that is really, really very valuable. So anywhere we can do that, that's a good thing to do. But that's not really my focus or my expertise. Like what I'm about is like red pilling people and introducing people to these ideas. And I'm very good at, I'm very good at making people realize that the things that sound so crazy about libertarian anarchy are actually very common sense, and the things that they consider very common sense are actually very crazy. Like yeah. I'm particularly good at doing that. But I think it's a false choice to say, like, for a libertarian presidential candidate, are we interested in introducing more people to these ideas, or are we trying to win? I mean, if you're talking about going from 1.5 million votes to what the 50 million that we would need to win, how exactly do you get there without introducing more people to these ideas?
Yeah.
Like the truth to me, I look at it like this, like if libertarians ever get anywhere close to the number of people willing to vote for a libertarian that you'd need to win the presidency, then we've already won the country. I mean, if we had 30 million true believing libertarians in this country, we're just living in a different country. I mean, it's like, I don't even know that you'd need the political apparatus to go through the federal government at that point, which is probably not your best bet. At that point, you'd have a real shot of like mass agorism, mass civil disobedience, nonviolent, stuff like that. So there's lots of different possibilities at that point. But I think our only path moving forward is to red pill more people and get more people thinking the way we think, which is very possible.
One of the things I find to be, I don't want to say baffling because these are not bright people, but stupid, maybe I'm missing something, which is certainly possible, if not likely. This argument against mean tweets, if you are going to be running kind of an insurgent campaign, if you're another party that has not ever come close to becoming electing a candidate, it would behoove you, I would think, or not you personally, anyone, to look at past kind of outsider campaigns. Jesse Ventura in Minnesota, Governor Ventura was one of them. Obviously, President Trump, Ross Perot in 92 and 96 are good examples. Perot made the debates, the first third-party candidate to do so, and be like, okay, what worked for them? And let's at least brainstorm it, because if it worked before, it's certainly possible that it's going to work again. Maybe it just worked for that person as opposed to a thesis. And they're acting as if mean tweets didn't just get Trump elected once. Now, even if you're going to argue that, okay, he got elected in bad terms, or is this really who you want to emulate? And he came in second to Hillary Clinton. If the numbers were a tenth of his success, you're looking at like 4 or 5 million. If the Libertarian Party is getting that percent of the vote, that is going to cause like real big wave changes in politics.
Oh yeah. I mean, it would be, like well, I'll say it like this. I mean, because there are arguments to be made for when you're throwing the ball down the field, like when you're going for it, what's the best way to go for it. And there are ways that you can, shit post or troll or things like that I think are less effective than others. Like, you happen to be like a master at that. Some people are not as good at that. Yeah. And so you can miss the mark. But what I can't understand is the debate between that or playing it conservative. Like, you don't play it conservative when you're down 7 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Like, you have to go for it. That's the only chance you have. So it's not just, there are these, a lot of blue-pilled libertarians who honestly believe that you really don't want to offend the corporate press and the blue check marks, because that is death. And you can kind of understand for many years why they believe that.
Yeah, because then you're SOL. You can't get your voice out there.
When they had a monopoly on the conversation, you have to be invited into the conversation. Of course, this is the kiss of death that Hoppe wrote a lot about, is once you're trying to get invited into the conversation and invited into the parties and all this, you're going to compromise on the most important issues. It's the only way. This is why Hoppe left the Mount Pelerin Society and all that stuff. But so there's that issue. But if you think about it like this, right? It's Gary Johnson versus Ron Paul. And I think it's something that I don't even know if Ron Paul intellectually understood this, probably did, but on a gut level, he definitely understood that. So when Ron Paul, so I'll do Gary Johnson first. When Gary Johnson in 2016 was asked about, he went on this whole thing about ending the war on drugs and how marijuana should be legal, it's safer than alcohol, all this stuff. And then some woman asked him a question about heroin. And she was like, my child had a heroin addiction and it's a horrible drug. Are you telling me you would legalize heroin and you're just going to let heroin addicts like die? We already have so many deaths. We'll have way more if you legalize it. And he backed off and he went, maybe we shouldn't legalize heroin, but let's just focus on marijuana. Okay. So that's what everyone says. And in his mind, it's pretty obvious. It's like, this is going to be pushing it too far. I don't want to lose them. So let me at least get pot on the conversation. I don't want to lose them here. That's his mentality. Ron Paul in 2012 was asked at the South Carolina debates.
Republican debates,
yes,
not libertarian.
South Carolina Republican audience, one of the most conservative states in the union. And he's asked, so you're saying you should legalize heroin? And Ron Paul takes the opportunity to look to the crowd and go, how many people here would do heroin tomorrow if there wasn't a law? How many people here are saying, thank God we have the government, otherwise I'm really worried I would go do heroin. I need the government to make a rule against this. And it got a big laugh out of the crowd and then an ovation. So really interesting moment. The laugh comes first, which was somewhat involuntary. Like it's so absurd that you just kind of have to laugh at it. And then they clap because they go, okay, I see his point. Now, whether or not Ron Paul thinks about it this way, what he understood on a gut level was that it's more valuable for people to see that I will stick to my principles even when they take me into an unpopular area, because that's what inspires people. When people see out of Gary Johnson that you will give up your principles because you're afraid it takes you to an unpopular area, that's when no one's inspired. And I wish more people in the LP would get that.
What people don't appreciate in terms of signaling is if you are the candidate of a minor or fringe party or third party, whatever you want to call it, and you're trying to take on the big guys, Coke and Pepsi, you have to be able to demonstrate on some level that you've got the strength to be actually be able to go up to them and punch them in the face or like take them down, right? Because it's like, so why it would the third parties historically and correctly have to face is this concept of, am I wasting my vote, right? It's like, I would like to vote for this guy, it's closer to me, but it's like at the same time, what's the point? And whereas here I can ostensibly make a difference is the thinking. This was a big issue for Obama in 2008 when a lot of people, wanted to have him as the nominee, but they're like, okay, this is just a kid. He's got plenty of time. Let's vote for Hillary. That's the safe bet. And then when Oprah endorsed him and it became a situation where, and especially when he won Iowa, then it's like, wait a minute, there's not a waste of a vote. Like a lot of other people feel the way I do. Let me get on this bandwagon. And when that happened, Hillary Clinton was BTFO and didn't have really a way to recover other than win New Hampshire. And it was all downhill for her after that. So it's really amazing to me how it just makes no sense, because you're never going to be ostensibly more anti-racist than the Democratic Party. if that is my pet issue, which is certainly someone's prerogative as a voter, and the choice is the Libertarian Party says we're going to fight racism, and the Democratic Party says we're going to fight racism, of those two, only one has really the capacity and the demonstrated ability to change law vis-a-vis what racial issues are. Now, you and I might not agree with some of their votes and their perspectives, to put it mildly, but at the very least, if this is my main issue and that's how I think, I would want to go with the party in power as opposed to the party out of power, which is basically saying the same thing. It just doesn't make sense on a competitive level.
Yeah, well, so you're 100% right about that point. And there's also another element to it, but you kind of have to know what's going on in the culture in order to even understand this, but to also understand that there's this whole critical race theory kind of school of thought, which is really this rebranded neo-Marxism that's led to this whole woke culture that many people are sick and tired of. And when you come out and say, we can't just be not racist, we have to be anti-racist, hashtag Black Lives Matter, you are using the language, whether you realize it or not, of this movement. And a whole lot of people who are against this movement are now completely turned off, like you're dead to them now. And by the way, of the pool of people against this movement, a lot of them are against it because it's Marxist, because it's anti-liberty, and they would actually be a very good potential pool for you to be pitching your message to. So it was bad for the reason you said, and it was also bad because of what it signaled to this whole other crowd, which you're much more likely to appeal to. Like you're much more likely to appeal to somebody who's pro-freedom than somebody who's anti-racism if you're a libertarian.
Right. Or at the very least, someone who's anti the state in some broad capacity. You know, the essay that you brought to my attention, which I think is just absolutely superb, and was actually, I keep saying actually, was going to be the Rothbard essay in the Anarchist Handbook until Jeff Deist, head of the Mises Institute, gave me permission to include the entirety of Anatomy of the State. Not that they're big on IP. Was that essay about, do you hate the state? And Mises, Rothbard's premise about like, all right, how do you determine who's your ally and who's your enemy? The question, they don't have to be an anarchist or even a libertarian. The question is, if they had a button in front of them that would end the state, would you press it so fast that they get a blister? And he points out there's many people who would not really be called anarchists who really in every part of their body despise the state. And that's where you should look toward allies. And I think we're seeing that increasingly in many venues. My communism book just fell. Look, this is The Secret Crimes of Stalin. It fell. Many people, maybe they want to keep it secret.
Did you see that professor tweet that went viral? I don't know if he's just like going for it, but the guy who's like, listen, man, okay, Stalin wasn't perfect, but it's great. Did you see him run a meeting? He was the best at a meeting.
No, they said that the professor said Stalin was known for being a good listener. That's that. I mean, it's like in meetings it's like, okay. It's like, what is that even? What's a bad listener?
I like him listening to you, but there's someone just like with a gun to your head right there. It's like, what do you have to say?
He was good listening. He was good at listening when everyone applauded and were scared to be the first one to stop applauding.
Unbelievable, man.
He was a good listener because everything was bugged, and he was hearing conversations he wasn't supposed to have.
You have to listen. Spend most of his day listening.
Yeah, one of my favorite quotes that I've come up with is in regard to the ATF. And I said this on Glenn Beck, and it was kind of off the cuff. And I'm like, this is really good. Even Stalin had the courtesy to knock. So it's got, when you talk about these no-knock raids and like the SWAT come in the middle of the night, Duncan Lemp is a perfect example of this. And I encourage people to look him up. It's that even in Russia at the height of totalitarianism, they knocked on the door and gave you that courtesy of not breaking it down. So I don't think people appreciate just how bad some things are in this country of ours. Do you have any idea what the next state conventions are? And when does the new LP chairman get selected? And how?
That's the Reno is next year. I can't remember, or is it's the end of the year next year? Sorry, I just get confused with all the stuff. Sure. I'd have to look up and check, but Reno is the big national convention where the next state chair gets elected. But there's several more, or the next national chair gets elected, but there's several more state conventions before that. So we're going to be in real good shape by the time Reno rolls around.
So did Archie Flowers quit yet?
I don't know. I don't know if he quit. He didn't show. He was supposed to do a debate at PorcFest, but he didn't show.
But he's from Vermont. It's very hard to get to New Hampshire from Vermont.
And where Porkfest is, if you remember, I mean, it's right on the border of Vermont.
Yeah.
It's got to be.
Wow.
He could have Ubered there.
Who is he supposed to debate? It's not an Uber, it's Unter. Please, let's be serious. Who was he supposed to debate?
He was supposed to debate some, I think like an older LP guy. I didn't know who the guy was, but I know he was a black guy, and they were debating the subject of racism, which was already just like, this is going to just go bad for you, Archie. Like, I think he made the right call to not go. And it was also scheduled to be right before my podcast. So it was going to be a lot of my crowd there for me. It was a good decision on his part to not go.
These people who are quitting, are they quitting civilly, or are they doing a big flounce?
Oh, no civil. No, it's the party has been taken over by bigotry and right-wing awfulness, and I cannot be a part of this anymore. That's kind of the vibe as they go out.
Isn't it? I would think this would be very heartening for people in the audience to hear people now for the first time complaining that something's been taken over by the right, as opposed to always the complaint is that, you've got this lefty crap sneaking in, and then it's poisoning the well.
I mean, listen, I was talking to Michael Heiss about this the other day, and I don't know.
Can you tell people who that is?
Michael Heiss is the founder and the chairman of the Mises Caucus. So he's the guy who's like my guy, you know what I mean? Like in the party. And he was the guy who started up the Mises Caucus and was like, hey, I really want to bring the like Mises Institute, Ron Paul movement libertarians into the Libertarian Party. And he convinced me to join. He convinced Tom to join and a bunch of other people. So he's really the guy who started this whole thing. And we were talking on the phone about it. And I don't know, there might be another example somewhere, but we were literally sitting there going, we might be the first ones to ever de-wokeify an organization. I don't know if that's ever been done before.
No,
and we're about to do it.
What was that website that said, if you work here, you can't talk politics, and a bunch of people quit? It was like some kind of cryptocurrency website.
I'm not sure.
That was pretty recent. They said and people quit on the spot, and it's like, bye, bitch, you won't be missed.
Yeah. But it's really incredible how like wokeism has kind of it's infiltrated almost everything. Yeah. It's like almost everything, from academia to big corporations to both major political parties, the entire corporate press, including the right wing corporate press. Like they all fall to it. It's the only other thing I could compare to it is progressivism, the original progressivism, where there's really almost no one, with the exception of Ron Paul. I don't think there's anyone in politics, with the exception of Ayn Rand. I mean, and their followers. I can't even think of like an intellectual. Even the Chicago school guys did not reject the entirety of the progressive era. I mean, they weren't talking about repealing the income tax and repealing the New Deal and repealing public schools and all this stuff. It's a very, it took over everything. And wokeism is kind of like that. And I really think that we are going to de-wokeify the LP, that just those types are not going to be the one there. And again, it's like, so many of them, they're stuck in this trap of critical theory where they put you into this binary where you're either a racist or a woke. You can't, right? Like you can't reject both of them. Whereas like our whole thing is that we reject both of them. We reject the collectivism of racism and the collectivism of critical race theory. Like we're against all of it. But I really do think that would be quite an accomplishment on its own, just to kind of set, be one of the first, if not the first, to do that.
Hey guys, underwear model Michael Malice here. Today's episode is brought to you by Sheath. We're going to be unleashing our underwear ads soon, so you can look at my genital. Sheath makes the most comfortable boxer briefs I've ever worn. I talk about them every week. I wear them every day. Sheath is great because it's made of this moisture wicking technology, and they're super soft, super cool. It's like a heat wave now. If I left my house, I would know this. But what's unique about Sheath and why I enjoy wearing it is that they have this dual pouches for guys that keep both parts of your male anatomy separated. So when you're wearing it, it's really, really comfortable and more than a little subversive, something Dave and I know about from birth. If you go to sheathunderwear.com and use promo code MALICE20, you get 20% off your order, including things like their brand new materials like bamboo or mesh for even more cooling comfort. Support the underwear that supports you. Sheathunderwear.com, promo code Malice20. Let's get back to someone who could be described as junk, Dave Smith. Do you know where I can go to find some of these hilarious, like, you can't fire me, I quit letters?
Oh, you know what? I'd have to ask someone to send them to me, but I could send them to you.
Okay. Okay. Oh, so there's not like Facebook posts or writing to the party?
There's Facebook posts, but I think I'm probably blocked by a lot of the people. People send me screenshots of them and stuff.
Oh, this is absolutely glorious.
It's wonderful. It really is. It's a great sign, and it really is like showing that they I thought they were going to fight for a lot longer. I was surprised that the New Hampshire thing came so soon. I was surprised that these resignations are coming so soon. I think they see the writing on the wall, that they're like, we'd rather concede this and try to tear it down than stay and fight you guys.
I don't understand how, whatever your politics are, you can be on the side of people who can't handle Dave Smith if they're interested in handling the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, right?
Yeah.
In all seriousness, like, if you aren't prepared to take on some comedian with a podcast, how are you supposed to take on these two parties which have massive fundraising efforts, huge corporations behind them, a brand name that people are historically comfortable with, depending on which side you are? This is what you're up against. And if Dave Smith who isn't even verified, let me remind you again, if Dave Smith is too much of a threat for you, by the metric you're saying that we're trying to make the party more successful, where is it?
Yeah. Or, I mean, if you're like in the fight to try to abolish the CIA, to try to roll back the biggest honeypot in the history of the world, and you're spending a lot of time being outraged about mean tweets, like, are you really sure you're ready for that fight? Seems like probably not.
So I am a bit of a sadist.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I don't think that you are, but this is where my brain went, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts. To me, there is something very beautiful and sinister when someone has spent a lot of time putting in work on this Libertarian Party, which meant a lot to them, and to have someone else come in and just basically take it from them and leave them nothing in return other than like being ass mad. Is there that part of your brain that enjoys this kind of sense of conquest?
Yeah, I'd probably be lying if I said there wasn't part of me that enjoys it. I do feel bad also, though. I don't like, I feel like this kind of, this sense of joy, but this kind of tragic sense of like, it just didn't have to be this way. And you didn't have to go down this road. The Andy Craig letter when he resigned was really something. I mean, he listed off every little position that he's had in the Libertarian Party. And he was like, I was the head of this committee. I worked on this campaign. I volunteered for this thing. I did this. I ran for this office and got the highest percentage of anybody who's ever lost for that office. And now I'm quitting. And it was this thing of like, yeah, like you see it, like you see the kind of entitlement that this is, and this is what I was talking about when all the people were going after you, coincidentally, as your book is like blowing up. There are all these people who go through the approved channels and they do exactly what they were told to do. And they were told they get to be the guy if they do this. And then there's you, and you didn't do any of that. No, you just went right to people and started talking to them, and they really loved what you had to say. Like, that's bullshit. Who said you can do that? You kind of see this thing, but it's like, yeah, man, all of that, all these steps, this is an illusion that someone sold you. And I'm sorry you bought into it, but that's not what I'm not working for any of these institutions. My commitment is like to human liberty. It's not to your steps. And I feel like there's, with a lot of these things, there's there's these situations that just go bad, like with interactions that I've had with some of these other libertarians. But I feel, at least from my perspective, like they put me in a position where there's almost nothing else I can do. Like once you come at me, like calling me every awful name in the book, well, then what am I going to do here? What am I supposed to do? I got to squash you now, like you have to like smash this person. But then you also, you realize often that person was like completely unprepared to be smashed and be in this moment. And it kind of broke their whole sense of identity, which I don't really wish to do to people. And you might enjoy that part more than me. That is
really one of my favorite things. Like, because when you completely destroy someone's sense of self, and their perception of their relationship to the world. I've kind of described some people as being chiropractors of reality, and this is a good example of that. If you just keep tumbling down this hill where you have this idea of, you're going to be the next whatever, and you have nothing to show for it, and then someone comes in and says, here's how it's done. And like you said, you've been following the rules because you can't think critically and you can't be innovative when it comes to strategy. And now you don't know who or what you are anymore. I love that because I think it behooves anyone who is trying to affect change to study people who have been successful. And like RuPaul says, steal from the best and make it your own. So, you can absolutely despise Donald Trump. And that's a great metric because you could say, okay, this guy who's a moron Nazi became president. What can I learn from him? Is it going to cost me having to be a moron Nazi? Okay, in that case, I'm not going to do it. Or is it, okay, if these tactics even worked for this moron Nazi as I perceive it, maybe they'll work for me. Let's at least try it out.
Yeah.
So to have this kind of hubris that not only do I have the right ideas, but I have the right strategy to get them implemented. Okay, where's the receipts?
Yeah.
Where is your proof? This is something that's happened in even the Republican Party. People like Christy Whitman had been governor of New Jersey. She was elected for the first time in 93, reelected 97, liberal, moderate Republican, right? And the argument was, which makes sense, which is common sense, which often has no relationship to reality, because just because something is common sense is not at all how voting works, which is often non-rational. The argument was, okay, I'm a moderate Republican. It's a lot easier to get moderates to vote than it is someone who's an ideologue because no one finds this offensive, so it's hard to get negative publicity about her. She got reelected with like 51% of the vote. This was not, if her thesis was true, which is not at all implausible, a sitting popular governor, even if a liberal state, would be able to, run away with it. If you look at, I think Larry Hogan in Maryland, I believe, was reelected with big numbers. Massachusetts, of all places, it had William Weld, Kerry Healy. There was a string of 16 years of Republican governors in one of the bluest states in the country. Hawaii. Yeah, Hawaii had so, but then you also had Chris Christie become governor of New Jersey, reelected, and I think both times his margins were bigger than hers. So her thesis does not at all hold.
Yeah.
And again, people think this is true intuitively because it's like, if I don't offend anyone and I get people who kind of like me, then I'm going to win. But the thing is, what they don't appreciate is voting is more than having amiable thoughts about someone. Voting means I'm going to get my ass out of the house and I'm going to take action to make my vote heard. It is a lot easier to motivate people to vote if you are kind of driven or kind of out there, because that audience knows this is my one shot and this guy finally speaks for me, as opposed to when you have, suppose Biden versus William Weld or some situation. A lot of people would be like, yeah, I prefer Biden or Will Weld, whatever. But it's like, I don't really care. So sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree with all that. And then I would just say, in addition to that, with some of the conflicts with these people, it is a situation where, guys like me and you have a certain amount of power derived from our influence and our audience. And sometimes it seems like it's almost like, look, the right thing to do is this. It's like, okay, I don't have power, real authority, and I'm not going to violate the non-aggression principle. I have my principles that I'm bound by. But if someone like Sarwark is going to try to make everyone think my friend Tom is a Nazi and my friend Jeff Dice is a Nazi and all this, then you know what I can do? I can have you called a bitch in your Twitter mentions for life. I can do that to you. Which
isn't much, but it's something.
It's not much. It's not much. But it is something, and it does bother a lot of people. Now, it doesn't really bother him that much. He seems to thrive in it, although I do think on some level it bothers him. He's just trying to come to terms with it. But there's other people who really aren't prepared for that shit, who really aren't. And I went gangster with that power that I have over the Karen Ann Harlos thing. I was pretty public. Listen, any one of you who votes to remove her for this, I'm taking names, and I promise you, your Twitter experience will be unpleasant for the rest of your life. And that may seem kind of fucked up, but that's the authority I have. You're using your real authority to try to remove someone out of vengeance for doing the right thing and making sure my people's stuff wasn't stolen. So if you're going to punish her for that, then I'm going to throw what influence I do have into this. Now, I don't think I do that when it's not warranted, but like for a lot of these people, it's like, yeah, if you're going around and calling good people the worst names in the book, well, then you know what? You're going to get called some names. I don't know. I think that's fair.
It's really kind of amazing to me how delusional the idea is that you can call a stranger publicly the worst possible thing you call someone, which is a Nazi. I mean, we're looking at Nazi pedophile. Like, I mean, which would you rather be called? I don't have any clue. And then to expect there to be some kind of civil discussion as a consequence. What are you talking about?
Yeah, no, someone said that literally. Someone called me a Nazi sympathizer. This little like gay dude in the Libertarian Party who called me a Nazi sympathizer. And then the next line I just said something and probably caught me in like a bad moment where I said, hey, just so you know, you could tweet that stuff at me all you want to, but if you ever say that to my face, I will slap the shit out of you. Like if you ever call me a Nazi, like if you see me at one of these events and come say that to me, I will slap the living shit out of you. Like this, like you think this is just so flippant to call a Jew whose family was slaughtered in the Holocaust a Nazi sympathizer? I know to you that just means like, oh, you were friends with Gavin McGinnis, but like to real people that actually means something. Like that is a term that means something. And then literally the next tweet, this guy comes back and goes like, okay, but then how do you explain so and so and so and so? And you're like, wait. You still think we're having a conversation? Like after that last exchange, like some of these people are just like, they just operate in a different reality.
No, they're on the spectrum, don't you think?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
No, I'm not kidding. I think a lot of this behavior is people who are unable to understand how other people have inner dialogues or monologues. And Jonathan Haidt, I think, is the one who established that there's a very strong correlation between libertarianism and autism. This isn't just us having a joke on Twitter.
No, it's a real thing. It's a real thing.
And this is neither good or bad, but I think I've been called on this. A lot of times people are like, you went ham on this person, you blocked them, but they were just kind of being a little bit aspy about it. And don't you think you're being harsh? And in that case, what am I supposed to do? Not be harsh. That's not happening. Hey guys, want to talk to you about one of my favorite sponsors because they're actually saving lives. That's Fume. So Fume, it's spelled F-U-M. It's a Canadian-made wooden inhaler, no electronics. It's filled with cores made from the benefits of super plants. Here's how you could order it. If you go to breathefume.com, breathe has an E at the end, you cretins, and use promo code Malice10, you get 10% off your order. So what it is, they sent me one to experiment with. It's basically like a hollow wooden tube, looks kind of like a pipe, and you fill it with these kind of styrofoamy cores. And those have different flavors within them. You don't smoke, but you do inhale it. They have Reassurance, which is lavender and lemon. They've got Shield, peppermint, eucalyptus, and clove. If you go to breathefume.com/malice, FUM./malice, use code Malice10, you get 10% off. Why should you use this? Because for people who are smokers, for people who vape and want to kick those habits, it's a great way to still have that hand ritual, which is very addictive, and yet not be using things that might be somewhat deleterious to your health. breathefume.com/malice or use code Malice10 and you get 10% off. Let's get back to the show. So were there any speakers other than that people you mentioned earlier that you found particularly engaging at PorcFest?
I wasn't there for that long, so I didn't get to see too many of the other events, which I wish I could have. I wish I could have stayed for the whole thing, but I got a 2.5-year-old and a pregnant wife, so I just couldn't be gone for that long. I'm trying to think of what events. I really didn't get to see that many. I watched Karen Ann Harlow's speech on YouTube, and she was talking about the whole New Hampshire thing and everything. And I thought it was really great. It was really great. But I didn't get to see like any of the other guys who I would have loved to watch. So didn't, unfortunately.
When we were there, what people don't appreciate is that there's so many different schools of libertarianism. And my friend once was there and met a Georgist who's a follower of Henry George, whose book, I think it was 1890, was kind of galvanized the movement, and it's been completely forgotten now. And he didn't even bother arguing with the Georgist. He's like, you're like basically this endangered species. Like, please keep your mindset because there's none of you left. Were there any members of any particular school that you found somewhat interesting?
I mean, from who I spoke to, it was like overwhelmingly like Mises Caucus Rothbardians and types like that. But it was pretty much just that. Like that was almost the only people I saw. Now I believe David Friedman was up there too, so I'm sure there were some people from that kind of school. But I didn't connect with that many of them. I did an interview with Matt Kibbe while we were up there, so I know like he's I don't know everything about his history, but kind of like a Tea Party, like Republican who got disaffected with the whole like Republican machine, I think. So there were some of those people, and Luke from We Are Change.
Luke Rudkowski.
You know him. He was up there as well. And I think he comes from more of just the like his background was like the 9/11 truth kind of community. And then just the real like guerrilla journalist, we don't trust any of the ruling elite kind of dudes. So I think there were some people like in that camp as well. But yeah, aside, the thing that stuck out to me is not even like the ideological or philosophical camps that people are in. Just the thing that's crazy about PorcFest is that you have there's these families, there's people there with their kids and stuff. You have very Christian conservative type people there. Then there's like yoga class where there's like these hippies out there, and there's like people I'm sure doing all types of drugs and stuff in the campgrounds and stuff. And there's just like this very eclectic mix of the spectrum of culture. Like almost every spectrum of white culture in America is represented at PorcFest in New Hampshire. It was interesting to see all of that.
So you know me well enough at this point. Do you think if I had gone, I would have had a good time?
Yes, I think you would have had a great time, and you would have received a hero's welcome.
But I'm a villain.
If you were giving a speech, they would have flipped out for you.
All right, I'll think about going next year, possibly, depending on what the situation was.
Like I'm telling you, if I had in the middle of my podcast, like if you were just backstage and they didn't know you were there, and I was like, guys, I got a guest I'm going to bring out here for you, and just brought you out, it would have like the hills would have shaken. They would have been so thrilled.
Okay, I'll think about it. It's just now I've started getting recognized like every day on the street, like on a daily basis, and everyone is super friendly, super cool, but it's hard to wrap your head around.
I understand, and I know that that's not the easiest thing for you, particularly, and I'm not going to lie to you. There's going to be a lot of, you won't be able to walk too far up there without a circle forming. You got to really be like kind of strategic. If you don't want to do that, you got to really be strategic about it. Like there would be points like where I do it for like an hour, and then I would like have to like even say like, listen guys, I got to go call my wife and check in with the family. Like I'll come back at this time, but I got to walk with it. And then as you're walking back, you get stopped like 5 more times. I love it. Like I don't have a problem with it, but even in those environments, sometimes you're like, guys, I just really got to call and check in on the family. Like I got to go do this. But so you have to be strategic about that, because it's going to be a lot of people who want to talk to you.
Okay, yeah, and this is a problem of being an introvert. It's funny, people have often argued with me that I'm not really introvert, and I usually block those immediately because you obviously know what the term means. So and you don't know me either, so it's just doubly stupid, and frustrating.
Well, they feel that way because they hear you talking to them like on this, on a show, but you don't realize that like listening to someone having a conversation with a peer or a friend or something like that is not the same experience as how someone is at a restaurant or a party or something like that. It's a very different thing.
Or just surrounded by people who are perfectly fans and well-wishers and wish you only good, but it's still very kind of overwhelming and can get off-putting very quickly. Maybe I'm on the spectrum, who knows? Because I know people like that don't like the crowds. Okay, Dave, we're running out of time. What has been your favorite part of this interview?
My favorite part of this interview was your wonderful interview with Jordan Peterson that I just watched the other day, which was really, really great. Congratulations on that.
He is welcome. Hey everyone, before we go, if you enjoy this podcast, and why would you might enjoy some of the other actual quality podcasts available at gasdigitalnetwork.com. This week, we're highlighting a show that I love, The SDR Show with host Ralph Sutton and Big J. Okerson. You can find the full catalog of episodes on demand at gasdigitalnetwork.com, or you can catch the latest 20 anywhere you find podcasts. Here is a clip.
The SDR Show. Let's go.
You know, I've hung out with Rob Halford, and Halford tells me that he doesn't warm up, which just shoots everything I just fucking said out the window. But I don't know if he's kind of embellishing the truth a little, because how cool would that be? You know, I don't need any of that shit. It's
his
like,
exercise is probably something gay. And he doesn't want to tell you. He goes, "You got to gargle jizz," but I don't want to know how to tell you that, Sebastian.
dude, could you not fucking wreck this interview? Like, seriously. Like, Rob Halford's a friend of mine.
He's a genius.
Yeah, so spare the fucking comments, because I'm not posting that. That's for sure.
You don't have to post that part.
I think he's coming on next week, by the way. We just spoke to him. I just spoke to him today. I think he's coming
Maybe
on.
you should skip those kind of comments.
Rob Halford and Sebastian, I was saying that was one of the ties into to the show altogether, was that Rob and I actually met Rob Halford at it. You both did the goddamn comedy jam that is Josh's Here's show.
You did my TV show, remember? We shot it at the Roxy, where you sang with Hal Sparks. You it was 2017 January. You sang no, not Back in Black. You Shook Me All Night Long with Hal Sparks. It was originally supposed to just be Hal Sparks, and then they were like, "We need somebody that can help him," and then they got you involved, and you just fucking killed it.
I think he's gone. Did we lose him?
I know he's here.
I think his video thing cut off.
I think his video just cut out. I don't know what happened. I'm not sure. I hear something. You hear like a weird... Shannon, I think that's you, that noise I always hear.
It's pin quiet here.
Well, there's two...
He's here. I hear him like touching his phone, yeah.
Yeah, I think he just turned the camera off.
Or it went out. I don't know. We'll see.
With the vamp. He is going to...
I think maybe, but I can't tell. He's still connected. That's what we know.
Can you still hear us, Sebastian?
I hear you loud and clear.
We just can't see you.
I don't know what happened.
Your camera turned off.
I don't know what's going on. Maybe it's rebooting. We'll figure it out.
Sebastian?
I don't know what's happening.
He said he hears us.
Maybe something happened. We could give it a second. We'll see what happens.
Okay.
Hold on one second. I have
Shannon, your thoughts? Yeah, I think I hear that he's there.
I see. No, he's gone now.
Oh, he just left.
Yeah. So what happened was,
I think it was the jizz comment.
Yeah, I knew. I said it beforehand. There was no way we were going to make a full hour with Sebastian.
Why?
I mean, you didn't get past. It's just a throwaway joke.
We got past the jizz part, but it was really Josh's mention of goddamn comedy jam that got
That's
him.
what set it off.
Yeah.
That's
fucking weird. Isn't that weird?
I know that he gets very, he just very, I don't know what the word to put it is. He just doesn't have a sense
Like
of
social justice-y or something? That was weird.
It was weird. Yeah.
I pulled out of it because I was just like, no, like Rob Halford's a genius and whatever. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what to think. That was just a pretty throwaway thing he said. He said he doesn't know no kind of warm-up. But what did I say? I was like, he doesn't want to tell you because it's something gay.
Yeah.
He's like, don't say that. He goes, is he not gay? I thought that was the whole thing.
No, dude, you also said he gargled jizz. He probably gargles jizz, right, Sebastian?
I'm not going to lie to you. If you said that about any gay friend of mine, it's like, that's their warm-up. Why would you be upset about that? He's rock and roll, dude.
I know. I just, there's been times in my life.
That's weird.
Yeah. What are you going to do? So
is he coming back on? Someone like see if he wants to come back on. I'll apologize for the comment, but I mean, like, that's really like
Shannon, send a message.
I'm texting Paul. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that he's not going to come back.
You've been listening to the SDR Show.